Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
President Trump has used his Twitter account to share inflammatory videos which were posted online by the deputy leader of the far-right group Britain First. The footage purports to show Muslims committing acts of violence. Downing Street has condemned the move. The president has been accused here and in the States of spreading hatred. The tweets have been welcomed, though, by the former leader of the Ku Klux Klan. Our North America correspondent Nick Bryant reports.
Britain First is a far-right anti-Muslim group with a small membership that often engages in publicity stunts to try to raise its profile. And early this morning it received a huge propaganda gift from Donald Trump, the America First president. On his Twitter feed he retweeted 3 inflammatory videos from the group's deputy leader Jada Franson, the first claiming to show a Muslim migrant attacking a man on crutches. This is Jada Franson in action. Earlier this month, she was charged with using threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour during speeches she made in Belfast. For her, these presidential retweets are manna from heaven. God bless you, Trump, she tweeted. God bless America. There's been a despairing response from the family of the murdered MP Joe Cox, who was killed by a right-wing extremist who shouted Britain First.
I have to say I thought it was a horrendous thing to do. Britain First is a well-known hate group. It drives hatred against Muslims, and Donald Trump is the president of our nearest ally, and the fact that he didn't check first or didn't even think about the content of those tweets before doing it, I think suggests his judgment is hugely lacking.
Downing Street has said it was wrong for the president to have done this, but added that his invitation to make a state visit to Britain next year still stands. As for the White House, it's unapologetic.
The threat is real. The threat needs to be addressed. The threat has to be talked about, and that's what the president is doing in bringing that up. Sorry, guys.
Previous U.S. administrations have liked to think of themselves as beacons of democratic values, but that's not been a high priority for the Trump White House. Many people around the world will be saddened and sickened to see the President of the United States appearing to validate tweets from a far-right group. 10 months into this unorthodox and provocative presidency, Donald Trump still has the capacity to shock. Nick Bryant, BBC News, New York.
Downing Street's criticised Donald Trump tonight for sharing anti-Muslim videos on his Twitter feed. It said that President Trump was wrong to retweet 3 inflammatory videos from the far-right group Britain First. Juliette Bremner reports.
Britain First! Fighting back! Britain First! Fighting back!
A controversial group, Britain First is shunned by mainstream political parties in this country, criticised for its extreme right-wing Islamophobic propaganda.
Slow down, everyone, nice and slow.
Deputy leader Jada Franson, seen here leading a march earlier this year, is facing criminal charges in Kent and Northern Ireland for allegedly making racist comments. Today, President Trump retweeted 3 of her posts, which claim to show Muslims attacking people. It's not known if any of it actually happened. Joe Cox was murdered by a man who shouted Britain First as he attacked her. Today, her husband was amongst the first to voice his anger.
I think pushing hatred has never been part of our country. It's never been one of the things that our country has done. And I think the president providing a microphone to these, frankly, nut jobs on the far right is undermining of him and is undermining the office of president.
The president left the White House today with no hint of an apology. There are calls for his state visit to Britain to be cancelled.
This really is beyond the pale, because what he's doing is normalising hatred. And for that reason, I think his invite to visit our country next year should be withdrawn.
A Downing Street spokesman said it is wrong for the president to have done this, but added the United States is one of our oldest and closest allies. An invitation for a state visit has been extended and accepted, and further details will be announced in due course. President Trump's press secretary tried to defend his tweets.
Whether it's a real video, the threat is real, and that is what the president is talking about. That's what the president is focused on, is dealing with those real threats.
But the president's love affair with Twitter seems to have once again landed him in hot water. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
And I'm joined live now by our Washington correspondent, Robert Moore. Robert, by any standard, an extraordinary intervention.
Well, that's true. I mean, look, there's nothing new in Trump's tweets or his retweets being inflammatory and provocative, but this is widely seen as a new low, as a sort of stunning and frankly rather shocking intervention in British politics. Why? Because it's obviously a propaganda bonanza for Britain First, because involved in those retweets, embedded in those retweets, is very incendiary video, the authenticity of which is in grave doubt, and because this is the President of the United States, a man with a quite extraordinary platform, a man with a social media reach of at least 100 million people. It's not at all clear why he retweeted this. It does suggest that his chief of staff is unable to get between the president and his Twitter feed. And tonight, the White House, as you heard, is not defensive, it's not apologizing, and those retweets have not been deleted.
Robert, thank you.
Downing Street has condemned a series of tweets by President Trump, reposting anti-Muslim videos which had been put online by a leader of the far-right group Britain First. Mr. Trump reposted 3 videos from the account of the group's deputy leader, Jada Franson, who's facing charges including religiously aggravated harassment. It's been met by outrage on both sides of the Atlantic and calls for Mr. Trump's invitation to visit Britain to be revoked. Live now to our Washington correspondent, Kylie Morris.
Well, Chris, here we are behind me in Congress. The future of the president's tax cuts, which he's staked his reputation on, is on a knife's edge. After yesterday's missile launch by North Korea, there are very real fears, again stoked by the president himself, of some kind of preemptive strike against Pyongyang. And this morning, he dialed up his Islamophobic credentials by retweeting those posts from the account of Britain First. Now, this is his way of governing. We now know it's terribly familiar. He thrives on chaos and controversy, and he's very deliberately engaged in that today. But I think the reason why we can't simply ignore this as some kind of a diversion is the material that he has retweeted. Remember, he has form in terms of his anti-Muslim rhetoric and indeed his actions. The Muslim travel ban, slights against the London mayor, a preparedness, it would seem, to paint all Muslims as representative of a terrorist threat. So this is a return to that form. He's retweeted the opinions and postings of American white supremacists before without any sense of shame or regret, and today he chose Britain's far right. Now, as Parag O'Brien reports, and viewers should be warned, this contains some of the violent scenes that President Trump retweeted.
This is Britain First, a fringe anti-Muslim hate group. Their modus operandi: dressing up as soldiers, preparing for, quote, the final crusade, dangerous publicity stunts in mosques,
If he's not here, I'm going to leave you some of these literature.
and, as we experienced firsthand, deliberately stoking religious tensions. This morning, the deputy leader of Britain First was the subject of a court hearing relating to charges of causing religiously aggravated harassment. At around the same time, the leader of the free world was retweeting some of the videos she had tweeted out. For example, this one. The video shows a young man attacking another man in crutches. The original tweet reads, "Muslim migrant beats up Dutch boy in crutches." This evening we spoke to the Dutch viral video group who originally posted this video.
This video that got uploaded to our website, as far as we know, doesn't show any immigrants or Muslims or anything. It were just a few Dutch teenage boys having a fight on the street, which is bad enough. Trump is always against fake news, you know, and this is obviously fake news.
After the court hearing today, we spoke to Jada Franson.
Does he know you? Does he know about you? Does he know about Britain First?
President Trump retweeted tweets from my Twitter account.
But does he know who you are?
Does he know who I am? As in, what are you asking?
Does Donald Trump know who you are?
I expect the President of the United States knows full well who he is retweeting.
Have you had any contact, or has Britain First had any contact with anyone associated with the Trump administration?
I can't comment on that at this stage.
Why not?
I can't comment, I'm afraid.
Britain First are relishing the publicity and see the timing of the Trump retweet at around the same time as the court hearing as significant. We've decided not to broadcast the bulk of the interview with Jada Franson.
The attacker in that video wasn't a migrant,
as she attempts to justify her worldview. Donald Trump, obviously, has decided to do the opposite. It is also worth noting that the killer of Joe Cox shouted out Britain First before he murdered the MP. In a statement today, the Prime Minister's spokesperson said that Britain First seeks to divide communities through its use of hateful narratives which peddle lies and stokes tensions. It went on to say simply, it's wrong for the President to have done this.
Just to add to Porrick's report, there has now been additional comment from the White House. Rather than describe it, I think we should just watch it. This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House spokesperson, a short time ago, responding to the question of whether or not the White House should have verified the videos before any decision was made to retweet them.
Whether it's a real video, the threat is real, and that is what the president is talking about. That's what the president is focused on, is dealing with those real threats, and those are real no matter how you look at it.
So it doesn't matter if the video is fake video?
Look, I'm not talking about the nature of the video. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. The threat is real, and that's what the president is talking about, is the need for national security, the need for military spending, and those are very real things. There's nothing fake about that.
Does the president...
And knowing the velocity of the news cycle here, this will no doubt roll through into the digital past in an hour or two. But don't be under any delusions, I think, about its effectiveness in terms of reassuring the president's base that he is fighting for their interests, that he trusts the message of Islamophobic propagandists as much as the fact-based media, who he insists trade in fake news, and that he is untethered by any need to be politically correct, that he is putting America first, although on this occasion using the anti-Muslim stance of Britain first to send that message.
Thanks, Kylie. Well, earlier I spoke to Brendan Cox, the husband of the murdered Labour MP Joe Cox, who has accused Donald Trump of spreading hate. His wife was murdered by a far-right extremist who, as we just heard, reportedly shouted Britain First while attacking her. The group, Britain First, have always denied involvement in the murder. I began by asking what he felt when he saw the president's retweets.
The fact that a sitting US president would retweet 3 tweets from an organisation that is a far-right organisation led by convicted criminals who, have racially and religiously abused people, I think that was a shock, to be honest. I think even with the low bar that this president has already set, I think this is a new level.
What does that mean, do you think, for Britain's relationship with Mr. Trump? I mean, Downing Street have said he's wrong. He is still due to visit this country.
I think the idea of the state visit was never a good one. It was certainly offered too quickly before we knew what sort of president he was going to be. I think, frankly, even before this, it had already been kicked into the long grass, and I think this is the final nail in the coffin. I highly doubt that there will be a state visit. When you have somebody who is now a purveyor of hate, someone that is actively undermining our country, who is spreading far-right vitriol. This is just a new level of low from the president, I think. Britain First is a tiny organisation. It's politically pretty insignificant. And for most people, the first time we heard that phrase was in the reporting of the murder of your wife, Jo. What does that organisation and that phrase mean to you? I think that there are people in our country who want to twist patriotism and to use it as a tool to beat minorities and people that they disagree with. And I don't think that is what our country is. I think people that use the name of our country to drive hatred don't understand what our country is and what it represents. And I think the one upside, if you like, that we should take out of this is I do think there is a unity of response amongst the British public who find the hatred and bigotry of Britain First, of Donald Trump and others repulsive. I think that we have a shared sense of values, and we might have disagreements over each other. We might not like particular religions so much, we might not like particular people so much, but I think our country has had a long found support for principles of inclusion, of tolerance, of fair play, of respect for each other. And I think that Donald Trump is in some ways the antithesis of that. And I think although today we've been talking about him being a recruiting sergeant for the far right, I think he's also the best possible example we have of the route that we don't want to go down. I think he's a rallying force for those of us that want to build a country which is more built on its values.
Brendan Cox, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, with me now, the MP Rupa Huq, Labour Shadow Minister for Crime and Prevention, and from... Sorry?
Oh, sorry, carry on. I was Shadow Minister until one of the Brexit votes.
I beg your pardon. Right,
I must correct you.
Rupa Huq,
former
Labour
Shadow
MP,
Minister.
Former Shadow Minister. Beg your pardon. And from New York, Ann Coulter, the Conservative commentator who may well be the reason Trump tweeted this. She is one of only 45 people he follows on Twitter, and she tweeted one of those Britain First videos just before he did. Ann Coulter, did you know that what these videos were was fake news, effectively? That they weren't what they purported to be, and that they were being tweeted by a vile hate group?
I did not know they, to this moment, have been proved to be fake. Have you done an investigation of the Dutch boy being kicked by the Muslim?
The tweet said it was a migrant Muslim, and there is absolutely no evidence found that it was either a migrant or a Muslim. Do you know that? Do you know? So,
okay, this is the old. No, this is the old.
Okay, so it's the usual. You have no evidence for what you tweeted. Okay, fine.
No, that isn't proving it false.
We've established
if you produce evidence that it's false,
evidence.
I will be happy. We have established that you have no evidence.
You were the one who was tweeting it.
Well, if it's false, I'll say that it's false. But you can't just say, oh, you haven't proved it, therefore it's false. Well, if only you had a multi-million-dollar news investigation bureau behind you, and maybe you could find out. But no, this idea that we won't count how many Muslims are committing crimes, we won't count how many immigrants are committing crimes, and therefore
we're off the point now. Don't worry about that.
Says anything
Rupa
about
Huq, why does this matter? Can you explain to Ann Coulter why it matters that the president is tweeting this stuff?
Look, these people have scant regard for facts. They don't ever fact-check their stuff. I think it's appalling, it's unacceptable, it shouldn't go unchallenged. And the thing is, these kind of things have consequences. So, I mean, yesterday in the House of Commons, we launched Islamophobia Awareness Month. And every time these kind of things happen, you hear of hijabs being ripped off girls, you hear of, you know, even grandfathers coming home from the mosque at midnight. In some cases, you know, we've had deaths from these.
Britain bans hate preachers.
Have consequences.
Britain bans hate preachers. It's banned people from America in the past.
Yeah.
Should Donald Trump be allowed here?
No, he shouldn't. And already that visit has been downgraded. It was going to be a state visit. It's now going to be a visit. Whatever it is, we shouldn't be rolling out the red carpet, any coloured carpet. Even if he comes on a visit, he will still be in Downing Street. He'll still be flying the flag. It's completely unacceptable. This man is noxious, and his presence in this country is not conducive to harmonious race relations.
And Coulter, you see the reaction here. The truth is that this is exactly what you want in America, though, isn't it? Because Donald Trump was tweeting this for his own immigration campaign in America rather than the effect in Britain.
No, the same way you're commenting on American politics right now. Every once in a while, Americans are interested in what's happening in Britain. I don't think it is about his domestic politics. Again, you haven't established this is untrue. It certainly seems to be true. We are in the middle of an avalanche of massive violence by Muslims screaming out Allahu Akbar. Certainly, I'm not in favor of hijabs being ripped off, but I think it's a little bit worse to be blown up in the tube or shot up at nightclubs in New York, be running down pedestrians. I mean, look, this has the ring of truth. It's not like it was a video of monkeys performing open heart surgery. You have no evidence that it's untrue. This is how the internet works.
It sounds
People
true. It has the ring of truth.
They send things out.
This is extraordinary. I mean, it's like hearing the White House spokesperson saying it doesn't really matter whether the videos are true.
Comical alley. I think we've got comical alley here.
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. Your entire premise for this discussion is it must be false. Well, we have no evidence that it's false. I saw the video. You saw the video. Why don't you find the two of them and prove it's false instead of having an entire discussion just assuming it's false?
The interview with the Dutch website who uploaded the video. They looked into it. The police looked into the incident. There was absolutely no evidence he was either a Muslim or a migrant. You're just making this stuff up.
Like Rotherham,
and now you're standing by it
like
because
Rotherham police
you can't back up anything that you
like
tweeted.
Rotherham police looked into the Pakistani rape gangs, like the MPs.
Well, this is what you always do. You always change the subject into
that.
something else. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what you tweeted.
I'm not changing the subject. We are living in a world where the media, police chiefs, the government lie to us about this epidemic of Muslim violence. So, yeah, you have to rely on other sources for this.
Rupert Huck?
I mean, they're just using this for him to play to the gallery, the way that he uses our nation. America is meant to be our closest ally and our oldest partner. We're meant to have a special relationship. And the way that this man has used our country to propagate his noxious, vicious, right-wing Islamophobic agenda, and it's part of a pattern, isn't it? The way he snipes at Sadiq Khan. I think some crime figures were released, MPS figures, and he was having a go at Sadiq Khan for this. The attack that wasn't an attack in Oxford Street the other day, it was almost that he was annoyed. I mean, these people, the Muslim ban, the wall with Mexico, we want the kind of president who's into building bridges, not walls. There's pulling out of the climate change agreements, the list goes on. Theresa May, to her credit, when she was Home Secretary, she was actually quite swift to ban people that she didn't want in this country. People like Tyler, the Creator, who was a rapper who did homophobic lyrics.
Let's not get into rapping, but...
Well, look, I mean, I think if she applies those same standards, every time there was a statement saying that entry to Britain is not a right, it's a privilege, we do not welcome people who do not share our values.
Rupert Huck, thank you very much. And Coulter, thank you for joining us as well.
So, if you didn't see the news, Donald Trump's morning Twitter flow included 3 retweets today, each an anti-Muslim video posted by the deputy leader of the far-right group Britain First. For example, one purported to show a Muslim migrant beating up a Dutch boy on crutches. The reaction to Trump sending out hate videos was immediate. Yvette Cooper, chair of the Home Affairs Committee, was typical. She said, "Couldn't have imagined there was anything left Trump could do to shock me, but promoting the views of a woman from a far-right hate group is appalling." It raises an interesting question. Her tweet raises an interesting question for progressives or mainstream politicians. How should you react to Trump on a day like this? It's a question for us too. A day when a president breaches the norms that most citizens respect. So here's the dilemma. If Trump, or anyone in fact, wants to get attention by doing things that annoy you, you don't want to reward their undesirable behaviour. So strategy number 1 is not to reward it. Just avoid being shocked by President Trump by not being shocked. Don't rise to the bait. The problem is that a consequence of that is that then the abnormal can become normalised. If anti-Muslim videos are not your thing, especially those posted by Britain First's Jada Franson, then to passively watch a US president post them as though that's an everyday occurrence implies that is an everyday occurrence, but it isn't. So if you don't want it to be normalised, strategy number 2 is to be shocked by Trump tweets, like Labour MP Chris Bryant, who suggested Trump should be arrested if he comes to the UK for inciting racial hatred. But the problem with expressing outrage is that it is, one suspects, what President Trump wants, and it's certainly what Jada Franson wants. So is there a third way for those who find the whole hate thing distasteful, neither rewarding it nor ignoring it? Well, I can think of only one. You react not with hate or division, but with love and understanding. You don't get angry. You follow the simplest advice of the Dalai Lama. Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible, he said. Be kind to Muslims and to Trump supporters. Is there anything else to be done? Well, you may have your own ideas, but I'm joined by the Conservative MP Nadeem Zahawi, who was born in Iraq and has previously spoken out against Trump's travel ban on majority Muslim countries. And you have reacted in your own way, which is by writing a letter to him. Tell us about the letter.
I've written to him tonight to explain to him why I think he's wrong for retweeting these videos, why many people in his administration, as well as ours, who work in counterterrorism would be heartbroken because our work involves effectively combating the ideology of Daesh or Al-Qaeda or any hate group, far right, or any radical group, by effectively going the other way, by saying, actually, what they're trying to do is dehumanise our values, our society, to brainwash young men to come and blow themselves up. to then participate in the same thing and dehumanize Muslims, I would effectively want him to think again, delete those videos. I want him to come here so I can take him to Stratford-on-Avon, Coventry and Birmingham and Manchester and Edinburgh and Glasgow and London.
And you've invited him to come when he visits to go and join you in
to try and educate him to the diversity, the integration and how beautiful, as he would put it, our society is. And I think he needs to really think hard tonight about his behaviour.
Do you think he hasn't thought about this or doesn't know what you're saying? I mean, or needs to visit the UK to know that spreading hate is not a good way of, you know, fostering community relations? I just wonder whether rationalising with the guy is ever going to work.
I'd like to think that he is probably naive to the fact that a lot of resources in the United States, human resource and financial resource, is going into effectively trying to combat this narrative, not just physically in Iraq. The Prime Minister's been in Baghdad today, where we are taking on Daesh militarily, but actually the ideology is much more important, and to effectively dehumanize in the way they do, or that we, as he has done in this, is completely counterproductive. It's wrong. And I'm sure when he speaks to Secretary Mattis or Secretary Tillerson, they will tell him he's wrong on this.
You must, seriously, you must let us know if you get a reply, because we'd like to know what the reply is. What reaction do you think he wants when he tweets this stuff? He knows what he's doing, doesn't he? He's not stupid. What reaction is he trying to get? Is he trying to just annoy, distract from something else, get attention? What do you think it is?
I suspect. So the people who create these videos do it because they try and target sort of emotional heartstrings that are sort of about hatred and sort of a basic knee-jerk reaction.
Tribal reaction.
Tribal reaction. It's what the terrorists use. They use these. They show videos of our society and they dehumanize it so that young men sort of can be brainwashed. Once you dehumanize a human being, you can do anything you like to them. That's why Nazis did what they did to the Jews, because once you do that, you're in a very dangerous place. So I think, dare I say, he has naively bought into that narrative.
One interpretation. Finally, we call Britain First a far-right group. Should we call him a far-right president?
I don't think so, because I think when sometimes he thinks about these things, he does say that he's the least racist human being alive. I'd like to believe him. I'd like to hold him to his word. I'd like him to come here and see how integrated, how peaceful and tolerant, and we coexist in a wonderful place in England. And I need him to be here to see some of this, because actually he is the holder of the office, and the Prime Minister needs to work with the President of the United States of America, and he happens to be that president. So we have to go the extra mile to educate it.
Thank you for coming in, and as I say, we'd really like to see his reply when you get it. Thanks so much.